I think people think that it's just about the dating pool and I'm too fly for everybody because that's the thing.
Mhm.
Everybody is too fly for everybody. I'm so good looking
Yeah.
and I ain't gonna settle and I got all these choices and I'm gonna wait. People
Yeah.
think I'm so good looking and I don't have to just take anybody. You're too short, you're too fat, you're too small, you're too tall. The Crucial Combo Podcast. You could be anywhere if you're on this channel. Thank you for tuning in. To the Crucial Combo Podcast. Welcome back to the Crucial Combo Podcast. I have a special guest, Taylor Chandler.
Mhm.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm excellent. It's a new year.
Absolutely, it sure is. It sure is. Are you ready for 2026?
I'm ready. I'm excited for the year. I think it's going to be really, really good.
Me too. I think this is going to be a year of prosperity. I think a year of clarity.
Mhm.
And I think there's going to be a lot of breakthroughs. I think there's a lot of chaos in the world, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, one of the things I try to do on this channel is just have good conversations, and I hope to be thought provoking. I appreciate you joining me. I see you're a licensed marriage and family therapist,
I
so
am. Yeah. Well,
in
I
the
really
world.
appreciate being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. So, well, let's get into it. So,
Mhm.
how long have you been a therapist in family, family and marriage and everything?
Yeah. I began my master's in 2015 and then began working towards licensure in 2018. I became
Nice.
fully licensed in 2020, and that's when I opened my private practice.
Nice. Nice. Let's kind of start off on the first thing I wanted to talk about. So, one of the things I'm noticing in present day is that marriage has become the institution of marriage and long-term relationships have become something that is kind of been out of the scope of political conversation, right?
Mhm.
So, I tend to think that a lot of the issues that America has, but I'm going to talk specifically about the black community. I think one of the issues that we have is lack of family structure. What I notice is that it doesn't seem like it's talked about. It seems like now it's become a conservative thing.
Mhm.
So everything's become very partisan,
Yeah.
and it's like if you try to talk about family structure and things like that, it becomes a conservative talking point
Mhm.
versus something that is a necessary conversation. So, what do you think about that? Has there been a decline as far as that conversation in your point of view, or
For yeah. And I think you said it really. I think you put everything really, really well. Like it's not outside of the political conversation, but it's outside of one party's political conversation. Like, I mean, the uh, the Trump campaign talked about family
right?
structure a lot. I mean, a whole push to have more kids and be married. I mean, simply, right? Have more kids and get married. And I mean, it was an explicit conversation and is. It's one of the reasons that young male voters in particular are saying themselves why they, or it was, that's one of the top reasons why they, I don't want to say necessarily gave their whole vote, but they were in support of that
Hmm.
idea. And so that conversation, I mean, I I haven't heard, I didn't hear it this last campaign from the Harris campaign. Um, and I'm just specifically mentioning Trump and Harris because I mean this has been the most explicit that I can remember family being a part of the conversation, like being a part of the, like you're running on that. That's one of the things you're running on. So um, that's why I mentioned them in particular and won't go back further than that because I'm not a political analyst. But I just to observe, just shares my observation and definitely noticed that. I think many noticed that. Definitely young male voters noticed that, and it mattered a lot. And so it has been left out of the liberal conversation.
I was trying to, you know, be quote not politically correct, but I was trying not to go straight there. But yeah, I think it's a
Good.
phenomenon to me that
Hmm.
I see that this time. I'm no political analyst either, but looking at the landscape of America, family structure is definitely something that has been part of the conversation outside of politics. But the fact that it has not been part of the conversation as far as when we look at policies and we're looking at ways to improve the youth coming up in education and the outcomes, jobs, trying to keep kids away from crime and dysfunctional relationships,
Yeah.
all of that ties back to family structure, and
Yes.
it's been left out of the part of the conversation. An issue I think for the black community, because it's no secret that black people have been branded with the liberal or democrat stamp, if you will.
Hmm.
And I see that there is one of the things, I talk to my wife about this all the time. One of the things I do like about, whether you like Donald Trump or not, one of the things I like about this last year is the conversation is starting to break through for, I think, the black community. And we're having conversations about, okay, it doesn't really matter about what branding you have as far as politics. The question is what things are important from a human level,
Hmm.
right? So I don't know if it's necessarily feminism per se. I guess that could be part of it. But I think also, and another thing we're going to get into this obviously in this conversation about this idea of individualism. So that's been very pervasive in society now. And I see it with the millennials. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but but I see it with the millennials and I see it with the Gen Zers. And there's this
Hmm.
heavy push for individualism, isolation in some manners, and people are just kind of getting to a point where they're like, well, I don't really need anybody.
Yeah, it's huge, it's deep, it's important. I mean, there's every word I could put that's a synonym to vital. I would put there. It's in the ripple effects are big. Like I think kind of what part of some of what you're getting at is it's not just like do you want to be married or not, do you want to have kids or not? It's what that means. Like what comes after those decisions or not making, well, you're making a decision whether you go for it or you don't, whether you do it or not, it's a decision. But it's the what does it mean when you make a decision to not be in family? What does it mean to make decisions to have children, but not make the decision to be in a marriage, to be in partnership, to be in a like a nuclear family structure? And the impacts of it are so apparent. Like this isn't like a, well, all roads lead to good, like just because, in other words, I'll be more specific. Everybody who has children, every structure, every home that has kids in it is not coming out with the same outcomes. And it's just clear as day. like like
Right.
like deciding, for example, to have children outside of marriage, like let's say you're making a conscious decision to do that, the outcomes for the child is not the same, as in it's worse
Hmm.
than when you have children in a nuclear family. And of course, when people will have this conversation, I'm used to being on the internet. So then people will say, well, what if the parent, is an addict? Well, let's say all things considered, like let's just
Right.
have from like the principle of the conversation rather than all the nuances. What if there's this and that? Let's just have like the baseline conversation. When children are raised in, I'll call it the nuclear family structure, mother, father, kids. Yeah, yeah, I wanted to make sure I said that right. Mother, father,
Right.
kids.
Right.
You're
Right.
getting certain outcomes and they're better compared to when that is not happening, specifically in single mother homes. So the
Mhm.
numbers are there, it's clear as day. And oftentimes narratives don't match what the actual numbers or the outcomes, the data are saying. In other words, like every single parent home, just because you're saying it's all good doesn't mean it's all good. And in many cases, it's not all good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, specifically for the black community, I think that we kind of stopped short of kind of getting into that because I think there's this thing about offending what you would call single mothers, right? We
Yeah.
all know single mothers. It's not anything
Mhm.
new. The single dads or single parenthood has always been around for the most part. We feel like we're going to offend people who end up being single parents. There always be people that end up being single parents.
Mhm.
Every marriage doesn't work out. People may die. You may have one partner who's totally dysfunctional and toxic
Mhm.
and crazy. These things happen. But ideally, I say a lot of this content for me is about younger women coming up, right? How do we want them to try to view the world as they get older? And what I
Mhm.
what I find is that I think we have a lot of young women who are resistant to marriage, right? On the surface, I think there's like, oh, I want to get married and I want to find somebody. The actions show a little bit different, right? I think men are open to find someone and be married. And I think women are open on the surface too. The messaging that's going out here in society now. There's a message of like you're gonna give up something. Or you have to find somebody who's going to guarantee you that you'll be happy and that you're going to have everything and give you all this guarantee up front before you take the risk. So
Mhm.
for whatever reason, it seems to me that the messaging is that women should not take the risk, right? They should not take the risk unless they're being guaranteed everything that is supposed to be good. And men are supposed to just take the risk, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's problematic for young women. And I see this because, and this goes into the next part. I see a lot of older women, right? So I saw your content on Claudia Jordan, and
Mhm.
I followed Claudia Jordan for a long time. And a lot of the women in her category, yeah, I mean, there's content that is just like out there just to say, hey, I told you so, and the Vivica Foxes and the Lisa Ray, there's content that's out there like that. But my
Mhm.
thing is not so much that, right? People get older, they end up not finding someone. People may grow old being single and alone. It is what it is. It's not something to gloat about. It's something to say, why are the older women not saying, you know what? That's not really the necessarily the way to go.
I'm definitely seeing a lot of messaging. Well, like you said, I agree. There's a lot of messaging towards women or by women and for women about like the risk of marriage and all of that, and that is definitely a big concern for women. And I see a lot of messaging towards men as well about the don't do it, to put it
That's true.
simply. And so I think we're just seeing a huge influx from both sides. And I won't get into I don't know how we could really have an objective measure of like who's doing it more and who's doing it worse and who's you can get in all that. Well, women are doing it more, men are doing it more. I just think we're seeing it from both sides, and some things that people are sharing are really valid, and a
Mhm.
whole lot of things are a lot of projections and personal experiences, and there's a lot of people that are talking that I don't think should be talking. But there's definitely
You
a
got
lot of
that right.
messaging on both sides influencing men and women, young and old. At this point, it's just like across the board. In
Mhm.
my opinion, I just think we're seeing it everywhere. So that's big. Um, to your point about the type, well, and also so specifically like from older women, or we'll like go ahead and hone in on that and not keep it
Mhm.
so like macro. But yeah, I don't think that we see a lot of older women doing what Claudia Jordan did. And I had my critiques of the conversation as well, but I think her the main point of it was like what you don't normally see, and it was uncommon that, hey, these are decisions that I made, and if I had made different decisions, maybe I would be in a different place. That's uncommon. And so I think like kudos to her, regardless of what you think about the conversation or
Yeah.
what kind of decision she's made. I think we're similar, it seems, in that like, I don't judge people for decisions that they made in the past. Everybody got something. Everybody got something.
Exactly.
And some people are
Exactly.
more in the limelight than others. And a lot of us project our own judgment onto people and all of that. So it's a whole different conversation. But I think what she did was positive in that regard. And who the platform she did it on, I thought was really important. It was the shade room.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
okay,
Because it's gonna get to that audience that need to hear
oh,
it.
oh yeah. That's exactly the audience. So I think that's brave of her, I think, for
Mhm.
her to have done that knowing that, well, knowing the shade room audience. Like, I mean, this, I would guess, now I don't have a measure for this, but I would guess that there's a large segment of that audience who would say, uh, who's in the kind of the people that you were mentioning, women who are like I don't need to get married, or if I do, I need all of these guarantees up front. I mean, that's my guess. Okay.
Hmm.
And so I think it was brave of her to do that. And I thought she went about it in a really humble way, from what I saw. So we don't see that often. Normally, and I'm not really big into celebrity news, but some stuff it's like I can't get away from. I'm
Yeah.
seeing it, right? And so I'll use an
Right.
example. As I do think that in celebrity news, we are able to have sometimes we can have intelligent conversation about celebrity news. So I think it can be handled in ways where we can actually glean something from it. I'm not into
Right.
celebrity life, but it's like, okay, if we all get this opportunity to look at this thing, let's see how it's playing out in the micro. And so, for
Hmm.
example, we've got Tia Mowry, who I think people are still talking about Tia Mowry because
Right.
she's still
Yeah.
talking about,
Right.
like the singleness and the graduation from divorce. It like started there, right? Like I graduated from
Right.
divorce, and now like the grass really is greener is kind of the narrative that it's almost like trying to be like pushed and sold to people. And I think that that's what we see more often, especially from celebrities, when those are the voices that we're going to hear the most, right? Celebrities, influencers who are mainly sharing or selling or pushing this idea that they would do nothing differently, and that it really is
Right.
better this way, whether it's from the divorce, or just their decisions to have stayed single, or to have not have chosen to be married. Um, it's more, I think, like I guess defending might be the word,
That. Yeah. Yeah.
defending their decisions, and
Yes.
not
Hmm.
acknowledging that, like what Claudia Jordan did, which is I could have done something different and it would have gotten me a different result.
Yeah, to your point, I think where she did it was important. And Claudia Jordan, I'm actually not surprised that she did that because
Mm,
so if I take a look, and I totally agree. I don't think people should hinge their decisions and things on celebrity news, but you can get some things from it depending on
mhm,
who it is, right?
mm,
And a lot of people watch celebrities. They really do watch people who are influential and consciously or subconsciously say, you know what? Yeah, I agree with that,
mhm,
and they may be in situations like that or going into situations like that. So, but Claudia Jordan doesn't surprise me because I think that she of that group of her class of the Vivicas and the Lisa Ray, she's a little more humble, I would say,
mm,
and always seem to be a little bit more, I'll just say humble. I'll leave it at that. So I'm not that surprised that she did that because there's a lack of humbleness I think that is pushed on women in particular, men too, but women in particular, to say like, nah, I don't regret anything and it's
yeah,
okay, and I'm living my best life. And you know it's not something, it's very pervasive in the society because it's not healthy, in my
right,
opinion. It's really not healthy. So when I saw that, I said, let me get into it and really try to understand what people can get from that. Because
mhm,
at the end of the day, if women are coming up and men and they're saying, you know what, I don't need anyone, and marriage rates are down dramatically, right?
yeah,
Um, and it's going in a direction that is just, everybody, like you said earlier, people are pointing fingers back and forth. Who does it
mhm,
more? Da, da, da. That really is immaterial. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It doesn't
mhm,
really matter. So I guess what I'm thinking is that what can people do? Like in your opinion, like when you are counseling people in real world, what are you
mhm,
seeing are the most issues when it comes to even people being married and staying married? Because, and I'll say this before I land, one of the things I see a lot, I see people getting divorced after a year or 2 years. And
mhm,
I find that to be really weird because you really don't have a lot of time. People are extremely impatient when it comes to anything, relationship, marriage. And like you said, it's the grass is greener,
mhm.
and I can find someone else. And that aspect is strange to me. So like what are you seeing personally?
Oh my goodness, these are great questions. I have to get my pen. I'm like, let me write some notes because there's things that are coming up as you're talking. I'm like, this is really good. And I'll actually rewind us back just a couple of minutes, on all because I want to kind of give an an answer to the question of like, why aren't women specifically saying some, why don't we have more Claudia Jordans coming out and addressing the, let's call them mistakes. It's okay to have a mistake, and that, even even in hesitating on the word, it's like when we own that we made a mistake, or we could have done something different, and even deeper word, regret. Like some people are going to have some regrets, and I think
Yeah.
one of the things, a big one that keeps people from saying it, especially publicly, is ego and pride, which go hand in hand. And so I think that that's really keeping a lot of women. I'll just keep it on women for a moment. That's keeping a lot of women from admitting that, and that's not just on a macro level. I think celebrities even have more resistance to admitting that, because you're in the public eye, and how it's going to look and what your image is. But then it's also in families, right? It's in people's families. It's like some people's mothers will not say, right, that I would have done something differently, and that's a big problem. So I just want to kind of go back and give like a specific issue that I think prevents people from being able to acknowledge those missteps. Um, why aren't people staying married? Um, so many things I could say. I think one of them, it's a big one, is not being rooted in a greater purpose than just you, and even just you and the other person. Like, I think that when it's just about you and you, like you and your person, uh, and you're not rooted in a greater purpose of service, for me and mine, it's God. Okay. And so with in service to the world and serving people, like from the very beginning, we knew that our relationship was not just for us. That's how we approached it from like the very beginning. And I think that level of um there's so many things I could say. Being rooted in a greater sense of purpose, because if the purpose is just for like lifestyle, the purpose is just for your comfort, your happiness, even just your stability. All of those things are good. I like people being happy. I'm not against people being happy. I'm like, I don't think
Right.
it should just be a drag all the time,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Like, should everything be based on your happiness? No, but I think if you can get happy in your relationship, great. Like, let's do that. That's not all it is, but I think that if it's just about like happiness, or it's just about comfort, and I want you to be comfortable too. I like comfort too. Like not everything should be a grind and a stretch, although those things
Right.
are helpful and those are constructive. Like having comfort in your relationship, in your marriage, is good. Having stability, yes, is good. You don't always want to be trying to like restabilize and recalibrate and doing all that. Stability, yes, is good. But even when it's just that, um, I don't think it's enough to keep people married. And you can be to I wanted to go to. I don't know how deep I want to go, Coach O, but
Go. Go.
some people, are in relationship or in marriage, but I really think of, when we think of marriage, is not the legal marriage. Marriage is not just like what society recognizes you as. Marriage is a spiritual position that you have with
Hmm.
somebody. And
Hmm.
so to stay married, not just did you not get a divorce, but someone's going to catch this, to stay married. Okay. Like, I don't
Right.
think when it's just rooted in you and like our humanness, I don't think it sustains. Even if some people stay together, I don't think the marriage sustains when it's not rooted in something bigger. Whether that's submission to God and what that means to you, or service to humanity, service to the world, or service to your community, whatever that means for you. I don't think it. I think it's very difficult to sustain marriage, like that spiritual position with somebody. I
Mm.
think related to that is service, right? Like we've heard a lot about this online, right? That people want, specifically women, and I agree. I don't think that that's a like a distortion. I do think and see, even in my own practice, more of and with my own eyes in society, where women are more likely to take the stance, consciously or unconsciously, that there's something that you should be getting from the other person, rather than how am I supposed to be serving the other person.
Mm.
And I can make a spiritual link to that, but but a lack of a general lack of understanding of what marriage is, and then also not understanding or accepting, because some people know it and not gonna do it, like that you're here
Yeah.
to serve the other person, and it's service to each other. That when it's just about like, what is this person doing for me, and you're just tracking how much am I getting and how much am I giving, and is it, and all of that. I don't think it lasts.
What you said, Taylor, was so. I think that's really the crux of the issue. So there's two things you really touched on, I think, that are really important that I think have to start being addressed, particularly with younger people before they reach that age, right? So the idea that there's something greater than you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the biggest point, right? There's something
Mm-hmm.
greater than you. Now, whether you're religious or not religious, I think the greater good used to be, and it's just my opinion, the greater good was family and legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least that. Some people who are have a religious base, they start with God and they start there, and then comes the legacy because it's all tied together. Some people who are not religious would at least say, okay, I believe in a greater power. I believe in God, or I'm not heavily religious, but I still believe in the legacy, the continuum
Mm-hmm.
of our legacy is the greater good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we've gotten so far away from that because, and I'm not going to just put this on women. Many people want the baby; they don't really want the relationship. They want the baby. They don't really want the structure to raise the baby so much. They just want the baby. Then,
Yeah.
obviously, the second thing you said, as far as I don't know if this might be bigger than the first one because the whole idea of what am I going to get? Well, what do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the
Mm-hmm.
table? What do I think everybody's scared about quote unquote assets. People who don't even have assets half the time are worried about their assets. So the
Yeah.
financial part it becomes something that's such a part of the conversation because like you said, I'll even say for men, there's definitely a push on men about, you know, don't get married, you're gonna lose everything, you're gonna lose whatever you work for and stuff like that. And there's also in the wake of just trying to think of a couple women like Mary J. Blige or Candy Burris is most popular now with her divorce from Todd about
Mm-hmm.
assets, what you're gonna lose. Okay, I get it, but I think part of it is really having good discernment and saying, okay, there is no guarantee when you marry someone, but if you have good discernment, you have a better chance of having a better situation.
That's a word right there. Discernment. So
You
good.
know,
Oh my gosh, this conversation is really excellent. I won't even go. I won't even go back to the whole children without marriage thing. People, like you
yeah,
said, it's men and women want the baby without the family structure. I just want to highlight that. That's a problem. Like,
please.
so if somebody's listening to that and that's a real issue. I don't think people are really thinking that all the way through. So I find it, honestly, the word is disturbing for me. And again, like you
Mhm.
said earlier, single parent homes happen. But to like consciously like desire that, want that, and then make decisions on purpose to make that happen, I think is uh, I'll, to be nice. I'll say it's misguided. I think I'll be nice. I won't assume anybody. I won't assume any intentions, and I'm not going to do any of that. But I think it's misguided. So I think I think that's really concerning. Um, then coming back into, you mentioned the assets thing. I've been thinking about talking more about this idea of building with somebody. Now it sounds so simple, but for some reason it's just so hard for people to like. I don't think
Yeah.
we really thoroughly um, explored, extracted, and described what it means to build with someone. And you used a really great word, discernment, because we have a lot of people who are afraid to invest. And a lot of times it's not, plenty of people don't have financial assets to invest in a person, but we're talking about also in very important things to invest, like time, like
Yes.
energy, like your
Mhm.
mental resources, your ideas. Those are all investments as well. It's really important. Those are the things that turn into money when you like
Yes.
steward them right, right? So
Oh
we have
man, say it
people.
again. Say it again.
I feel like I want to be here all day now. So where people are afraid to invest, um, because it's like, what if I do this and it amounts to nothing, or I do it and we get married and then I lose my investment. But that word discernment is such a key word, because on one hand, you're right. If you invest all of these things, whether it's money, time, attention, your mental resources, your ideas, your intellectual property, like, I mean, all these kinds of things, your intangibles or tangibles, you invest these things in the wrong person, yeah, you're going to have a big problem. But what you don't, and then we see fallout publicly. We see fallout, and that's scary for a lot of people, right? What you don't know and what you don't see, and what I have the benefit of being a therapist, get to see a lot of things on the inside. A lot
Hmm.
of people that end up in situations, specifically marriage, that turn out that way made decisions to be with someone that I would venture to say that should have never been with. People get into marriages, relationships for, to put it short, wrong reasons, right?
Hmm.
Um, and and when you are invested in any way in a person, we were talking about marriage in this case, you're invested in a person, and and you were not and you are not, we'll go back to that definition of like a spirit, or that concept of a spiritual marriage,
Hmm.
truly, let's say one, right? Like truly
Right.
in that vulnerable and protected safe space with someone. Bad things happen. Bad things happen, to put it simply, because I could go on and on about this. So um, there's fear, I think, in building with someone, but not taking into consideration that that's the best thing you can do when you
Right.
discern on the front end and as you're going, right? Because it should only be more and more clear that it's a good idea. Like that, then
Yes.
it should only be more and more clear this is a
Yes.
good idea,
Hmm.
to keep investing in this person and
Hmm.
in this relationship, and then in this marriage. Um, so I think that those things, right? Then all and I don't think we have enough conversation about what it's like to build with someone. There's a lot of show about what it looks like after the build, but
Right.
when you want that on the front end, I could go on and on. First of all, you got to be coach. I don't know if I should say this, but
Say it.
I'll just
Say
speak
it,
for
please.
women. I was going to say this for I was going to say this for a woman listening, okay, or for someone who shares with a woman. Women who want that on the front end, you need to be a very particular type of woman. And now that's not a lot of women. I'm just going to keep that very simple. Okay. That is not a lot of women that are going to get that on the front end. Okay. Most people will, and I think as they should, be building with someone to create the vision of the marriage that you want. That's tangibly and intangibly. But when you don't know what to expect, like what that's going to look like, feel like,
Right.
and what it's going to require of your character, for one,
Right.
okay, what it's
Right.
going to require of you, it's shocking to the system. I think that's for men and women in different ways. Obviously, I can talk about it more from a women's perspective, but I think
Sure.
both. I think that there's a lack of understanding and misaligned or confused expectations of what it's like to build the relationship materially, and or I should say tangibly and intangibly, what it's like to build that with someone. And a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't equipped and don't expect what that looks and feels like, and they think that it's wrong or bad, or this isn't the right person, when it's a part of the process of the build.
Right. So here's the issue I think for women in present
Mhm.
day. On the financial end, women are not fully dependent on men. Women have not been
Mhm.
dependent on men for a long time, but they're really not dependent on men. So we work to get to a point, I think, in society where women could be autonomous and have the right to live up to their full potential and earn. I think everybody's comfortable with that, right? I don't think most people are angry at that. Men certainly are not angry at that. Speaking as a man, I
Mhm.
think the issue is that where does that place women in their decisions in present day when it comes to choosing a mate? Because now it
Mhm.
becomes a dynamic where I'm not getting in a relationship for security. I'm getting in a relationship for partnership. Well, actually, it's become some other stuff, like we said. What it should be is should be for to build something forward for the
Mhm.
future and have companionship and all the righteous things, quote unquote, right?
Mhm.
But what it's become is a lot of other things. So I think that where it places women is that the choices, first of all, we have to first admit that it's healthy to have companionship, good companionship. And we
Mhm.
have to also admit that if you're going to be earning money or you have the right and the opportunity to earn and do what you need to do, it also comes with a level of understanding that you'll be building with someone, right? So
Mhm.
I think that that's where I think the resistance comes from, where it's like, well, I don't really need to be with somebody.
Mhm.
So because I don't need to be with somebody, I don't really have to scrutinize my choices because I won't be out in the
Mhm.
cold. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of the crux of where that dysfunction is coming into on the women's side, I'd say. I think men, and again, maybe I may sound biased. I think men are reacting. Men are reacting to, and it's not all right, but I think men are reacting to what they think women are. So some men are going jumping out the window and, oh, I'm gonna move to another country and find the non-American woman, or I'm just ain't gonna
Mhm.
get married. I'm gonna be, whatever. Ultimately, I think for any community to thrive, I told my friend, I said, he was like, do you think we can't just marry our way out of poverty? And I said, actually, we can. I think that in many ways, it may not be the only solution, but when it comes to the black community, most of the conversations is about, it's either about racism or it's about economic opportunity or lack thereof, right? So if we're talking about racism aside, if we talk about economic mobility, one of the things that helps with that is family structure.
Yeah.
Um, if two people get together who are making 60 grand a year, now you have 120. Two people getting together, and this is before we even bring kids into the scenario. Two people getting together to link up to do something puts them in a different category. They may be, especially in this day and age, they may be able to buy a home more than likely before the single person can. So
Mhm.
now you have an asset, or they could invest together, or they could start a business together.
Mhm.
So there's so many people who are out there like, I'm gonna go get mine on my own, and then I'll link up with somebody who has their own, and it better be on the same level of what I have, or else I ain't giving them a chance. You know what I'm saying? So that's the dysfunction I think that's going on.
Mm.
I think it's going on everywhere, but in the black community, it's problematic because there's the lack of generational wealth. There's a lack of historical generational wealth. So the only thing that you can do, if you look at most other communities, the family structure is the very beginning. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so if you don't want to live together with family and all live together to buy properties and live together, if you don't want to get married, you don't want to buy a property together with your spouse, if you don't want to do things collectively, you don't have a community. So I
Mhm.
think that y- all of these things tie back to that. And I think people think that it's just about the dating pool and I'm too fly for everybody because
Mhm.
that's the thing. Everybody
Mhm.
is too fly for everybody. Oh, I'm so good looking and
Yeah.
I ain't gonna settle and I got all these choices and I'm gonna wait. People
Yeah.
think I'm so good looking and I don't have to just take anybody. You're too short, you're too fat, you're too small, you're too tall. But all of that on the surface,
Yeah.
all of that on the surface ties back to it. So when we go to
Mhm.
voting and things like that, I'm just gonna lay this out here. One of the issues I had this time around with the Democrat Party, one of the things I had an issue with is that what I started the show with. We are not talking about family structure, and it's like we're talking about abortion. We're making abortion the centerpiece to the conversation. We're making
Yeah.
civil rights, and to me, I'm like, yeah, those. I'm not saying those things aren't important, but they're not the
Mhm.
centerpiece of the issues.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
The real centerpiece of the issues of what we're talking about, and I wish
Yeah.
people took it more seriously, you know.
Me
And
too. Several things. Family is the bedrock. When it comes to building wealth, Consistently, the family structure is I mean, it's one, it's like the necessary component. To delude ourselves otherwise is only delaying us. Okay, it's just so to deny that is just simply inaccurate. Like, this isn't like opinion at this point. Like, this is just like,
Right.
this is what having this structure, and 2 plus 2 keeps equaling 4. 60,000, 60,000 keep equaling 120. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like, so
Mm-hmm.
some of these things, like, these are just principles that work. Um, and then, when someone doesn't like to hear that, well, then you have to bring in that word discernment. Now, who you're doing that with matters, right? And then being on the same page about money management, all this, all these are nuanced conversations, but the principle of the matter is the same and will continue to be. So, like, having that family structure helps to build and sustain wealth. um Now, we're at a place right now in society, though, where people, uh, I think sometimes people think that they are out of there. How do I say this? um I think we have people who need that extra financial support and cushion, but might not see it apparently in their day-to-day life. In other words, I'll say it a little bit differently. um when someone thinks, like, okay, I don't need a spouse because I can live on my own. Like, I can I can take care of, my bills on my own, which the grocery store is looking crazy right now. I mean, like,
Oh,
I just bought some salmon yesterday. I was like, I've never bought salmon this expensive in my life. So I don't
don't
know
get me
how
started on the
long
grocery store.
people are
Don't
going to
get
be
me
able
started
to.
on the grocery store. Oh
The
my God,
grocery store
we
is,
spend a lot of money every week. Oh my God, that
yeah.
groceries don't last at all.
Look, I don't. That's a whole conversation right there. The grocery
That's a whole
store
show.
is upsetting at this point.
Yes,
So the grocery
really.
store. So the point being that, like, I don't know if some people are kind of doing the math in their head about, like, what this is all amounting to, and not just, and then also forecasting forward to say, this isn't just about, can you, maybe we need to have higher aspirations for ourselves financially. Like, do you just want to be able to pay for your bills, or do you want to be, and just, you want to go on a vacation? Okay, but what about, I mean, at some point you probably want to retire, right? Like, at some point, you probably, if you have kids or want kids, you probably want to be able to leave something for them, right? Or be able to provide for them, right? So this isn't just about you, and it's also not just about today.
Mm-hmm.
I also would say, like, I think a lot of people have, uh, I'll be honest. I wish some people would just kind of look at their financial position and say, I will pair up with the person who has the same money mindset as me, because then we could be at least financially good. Because maybe not everyone needs a romantic love story, but I think that's too big of an ask for most people, to be honest. I wish people would do
Probably
it.
so.
Okay, I think that's
Probably
too big of
so.
an ask, right? I'm like,
I feel you. I
I'm
feel you
like,
though.
can we just get two people who just want to have a bunch of money together, and y'all don't got to do the whole romantic thing too much. Maybe a date every once in a while, but can you just build together? That's not going to be most people, right? I think that's just a fantastical way of thinking. But if you can at least, um, can you align start to can you start to open up your mind to what that would be like to build with someone, not just rely on yourself, but open up your mind to what it would be to build with someone, and include that in how you are discerning who you want to partner and marry. I think that's a fine ask. The money conversation is really deep. I'm trying not to go, like, all the way down that rabbit hole. um,
Yeah, I
but
agree.
the building wealth, maintain, even just having money and keeping it, family is the best structure for that. Simply put, I won't go down the money rabbit hole. You mentioned something else about, related to money, that because women are not dependent on men anymore, there is um, a gap. We call it a learning curve if we want, like, in terms of, like, well, what do I need a man for? What is men's purpose? And there are men who also have to be able to identify themselves outside of money and work.
Yeah.
And so there's this catch up that we're having, that's going on right now. Like, um, gosh, this is such a big conversation. We could talk about this alone for 2 hours, this part
Literally.
alone. There's this gap. Women being like, okay, I can make money. Um, I don't think women are making as much money as they're saying, but I think women, it's like, okay, I can make money. Then what do I need men for? Men who are being locked out of jobs, to be quite frank, especially, I mean, like with technology I'll try to simplify this conversation. Technology coming, blue collar workers being outsourced to these other things, and also just government initiatives that prioritize women over men.
Hmm.
So there's a fallout of men in the workforce. So we
Yeah.
have and then men needing to be able to identify, well, who am I outside of money? What if I am not the provider? What if I'm not the primary
Right.
provider? And even what if I am? But now we've kind of evolved as a society to say, for men saying like, I don't want to just be a wallet. Okay, good, right? But now I need to know, then who am I? And so we have these like gaps around, like, we have a lot of things going on with money with men and women right now.
Yeah.
I'll try to simplify.
No, you're putting
So,
it perfectly.
well, thank you. So for women needing to, I'll speak just to that for just this moment. For women, we need to be able to identify who are men, what are men for, what is a man for, what is a husband in my life, who is a husband, not who is my husband, who is a husband, like what is a husband, what makes up a husband. I need to know what that is outside of financial provision. And so I think that that's a question that women would do really well to reflect on, to think about,
Yeah.
um, and so you can recognize the value of men. I do think that I do think that something that men do very well is work. I think men find purpose in work. I don't think that's a bad thing,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I think that's great. Um, and I think because, like, to the point you're making, because women are also working and women are also able to provide for themselves and have experience in their lives now for a couple where they're like, I've been doing it. Okay. Now then answer the question of, then who is a man in my life? Who is a husband? What is a husband? Because there's so much more value that a man provides than just providership. So I think that's an
Absolutely.
important question for both men and women to be able to answer for themselves.
Hmm.
Um, I wrote on my notes, and I don't remember exactly what had me think of this word, exactly what you said, but as we're talking about building together, it requires teamwork. I think and I guess to one of your points earlier, right, about this individualistic culture that we've
Yeah.
created, marriage relationship takes teamwork. Like, you got to be able
Hmm.
to have conversation and work together to get on the same page and work out
Hmm.
problems and create win-win solutions. And you got to be able to change your mind, and you got to be able to let things go. All these things that I would put under the umbrella of being a good team player and being able to
Hmm.
collaborate with somebody. And I don't think that is being taught. I don't think it's been modeled a lot. I mean, especially when we look at how many single family homes that we have. Right, the first school is the house, and I hear from a lot of people that I just never saw it. I never saw
Yeah.
what it was like for a man and a woman to actually work together. I also don't think you need to have models in the house or to be able to learn it, but it is
Sure.
very, very helpful. Right, it's a
Yeah.
huge help. So I think that just even understanding like the principles of team, like how do two people work together, is really important
Yes.
and is severely lacking. And I could say the same thing about self leadership. Like, there's the principles of how do you lead your life as an individual. That's severely lacking. So we just have these like fundamental necessities of a functioning family that I don't think are being like thoroughly taught. and
Yeah.
and then so we have people who, everybody can get married. Like, everybody
Right.
can go and
You
get
can do. Yeah. It's
married.
not hard to do it.
No, you can, and that's what is happening a lot, right? You can have a baby, but what are the fundamental like mechanisms of family, the fundamental mechanism, the fundamentals of parenting, the fundamentals of wifehood, husbandhood, of marriage. Like you can go get a thing, but if the fundamental mechanisms aren't there, the system falls apart, and that's what we're seeing. So that's what
That's
we
what we're
continue to
seeing.
see.
The word I'll throw in there is people are not willing to compromise. That's the word that comes to me a lot. People are not willing to compromise, and I think that as a society, our idea is that compromise as little as possible. If you can,
Mm-hmm.
don't compromise
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have to, and that's a scary thing. So,
Yeah.
well, the last thing I'm just gonna brush upon this subject. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
get your opinion. Now, in the spirit of what I talked about in the beginning, as far as, you know, I don't like labels as far as liberal conservative. But the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I think they're important is because I think that there are certain things in the conservative basket that would be beneficial for black people. I think
Mm-hmm.
some people hate when I say that, or they hate when other people say that because
Yeah.
it's such a, oh, you're one of them or you're one of these, and the things that are in the conservative basket that I think would be beneficial, that I don't have a problem, however you identify politically. I really don't
Mm-hmm.
care. A lot of people feel like you got to choose a side and, this and this and that. My thing is that there are certain there are certain things that would be beneficial that are not in the side where most black people vote. So I just keep plain and simple.
Yeah.
There's certain things that are not over there. So family structure is definitely one
Mm-hmm.
that is not there, which is lacking, right? I would say religion is on the liberal side, but the things that are in religion that are would be conservative, we just kind of ignore. I wanted your opinion on, if you wanted to give the opinion
Mm-hmm.
on Nicki Minaj sitting with Turning Point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this just so people understand, right? I understand the backlash that she got by going to sit with Turning Point in in the respect of how people may see Turning Point. I don't care about Turning Point. I'm not here to advocate for them. And there are things that Charlie Kirk represented that he said that people may have said, you know what? Look, at the end of the day, I get it. People are saying, okay, I don't like racism. I don't like anything that looks like racism, that might be racism. Cool. I get it. I totally get it. From the religious perspective, Nicki Minaj said that she went and spoke at the UN about the Christians being persecuted in Nigeria. And that was her reasoning to go and sit down. I've said this on many videos. Black people do not have the room to be conservative or liberal. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have the room, in my opinion, as other groups do, to sit in whatever position they do.
It's like like everything you said today. There's like several different things that I think I could say. One, I think, of course, like the things that are magnified online, like people's responses are like always, let's say almost always. I know that I don't want to be extreme and say every single time, but it's like almost always like the things that are magnified online is people who just don't critically think. Critical thinking just requires being able to, as you have so eloquently put and have displayed throughout this conversation, the ability to hold two ideas at the same time. That's one of like the cornerstones of critical thinking. And so
Right.
when you are in black and white thinking, so when it's either you're this or you're that, if you do this, it must mean all of these other things. That's black and white thinking. And that's where we fall into these fallacies, these thought fallacies, which means essentially you're not thinking accurately. Okay, like you can just because
Right.
you can form a sentence about it, like it must mean that doesn't mean that it's accurate. And so when we lack nuance, you're really in dangerous territory. So I think a lot of things that are magnified online lack nuance because extreme is the stuff that goes viral. We should all know that at this point, right?
Yeah,
Like I
that's
played with my own content last year. Like whenever I would if I said it's this or it's that, it's like it just because it makes it simple. It attracts simple-minded people,
yeah.
and it appears to be something that sounds so true and so bottom line, but the truth is so gray and so nuanced, and it's so this and that. It's so both.
Mhm.
So when we talk like that, it attracts simple-minded people who don't think, who don't read, um, who who want quick, easy fixes and explanations for how to explain the world. Why is this happening? It's because of this. These snap judgments. So I think like we need to understand that that's happening, like this lack of critical thinking that comes with all those things I just described. I think that there are people like us who can have these more complex conversations, but we do not. I think we're starting to get together more. Like for me, I mean, for a while, I'd be like, it feels like I'm the only one. I can't find people
Right.
who can hold all of these ideas at the same time, um, and especially like, I mean, it was hard to find online. So I think now, I think we're starting to get together more, and I hope that it continues because I think there's more people like us. But since we're not so rambunctious, we don't it's harder for us to
R-
find each other, and it's harder to
right.
get other people's attention. Now I don't think we should like, I was saying just yesterday, I don't compete where I don't compare. I'm not going to be that. But what I
Right.
do think we need to do is be those of us that are willing to speak. I think we need to hold more spaces for people who don't want to be on the camera, but who have similar ways of thinking, and who are like-minded and have similar values, and who want to be in spaces that where this kind of conversation is welcomed and
Yeah.
not. So I'll say all of that, and it comes up because we can get into the trap, I think, of thinking like, why don't Black people want to have this conversation? And I'm like, I think when we look under the surface, it's like, no, we're here,
Right.
we're just not loud like that, and we're
Right.
not
That's
doing a
true.
bunch of crazy stuff.
That's a
So
great point.
it's harder to
That's a
find
great
us.
point.
So I'll say that for people like us. Um, what I think about Nicki Minaj being on Turning Point, I'm like, I'm not gonna comment on Turning Point and Charlie Kirk. All of this, it just looks like a whole mess. The whole Charlie Kirk thing, I don't know what. I'm like, I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on.
Noise.
It's this whole thing is just crazy. But but I will comment on Nicki Minaj. Um, I think it's was brave of her to do that. And she must have, I can only imagine that she really had to think about what it would mean for her to do that. And I think it was brave of her to do it. I can't speak to her personal motivations. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that, but she did do it. And she would know that there would be a fallout and backlash. I think she had deactivated her Instagram like a couple months prior to it. Like I would assume because she knew she was about to do, and then she didn't want all of the mess going on. I don't know, but that's my guess.
Well, I
I
think they
think,
say that she lost 10 million followers after it.
but that's what
And
that's how I found out that she actually deactivated her Instagram
oh,
before
okay.
the event, because that's actually a
Oh,
rumor.
okay.
But it was
I didn't know
picking
that.
up. Yeah. So everyone was saying she lost 10
Got it.
million, but the reality was that she actually deactivated before the event. So there was no way she could have lost the 10 million because they couldn't
Got it.
remove her. So that's, how internet, you do all
Lies,
kinds of
all lies.
stuff. All kinds of stuff. I'm like all this fake news everywhere. So I'm just thinking maybe it was an anticipation of the event, but I don't know. I think it was brave of her to do it. I think that, she's married with kids. She has kids now, right? She has kids. She does have
Yeah,
kids,
I think she
or at
has
least
one or two
one.
kids. Yeah.
Um, so she's in a different stage of life. People start waking up and having all kinds of revelations, and things become priorities and important to people. Sometimes it takes the family and kids to do that. And if
Hmm.
that was the case for her, then more power to her. I mean, good. It seems like her priorities have changed, and she said herself that, and again, we don't know how long she's been thinking and feeling this way. So I'm
Right.
not even saying it was family and kids, although that does kind of seem to shift people's priorities and values. Sometimes it shifts their values. Other times it just magnifies what was already there. But
Hmm.
um, for her, she said that she was tired of being pushed around. And she made some comments about saying like, they don't want you to be different. And she
Hmm.
didn't say who they was, but
Right.
I think every
Right.
black person looking like, you talking about black people, right? You talking about your fans, right? You're talking about Democrats, right? And she
Yes.
didn't
Yes.
explicitly label that, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of figure that out.
Yes.
So I respect her for going against the grain and for saying something that is clearly, and sitting with someone who clearly is not aligned with her fan base. Um, so I think it's brave of her. I think that it's for her to speak on her convictions. You know, like you said, she didn't go there. Apparently, She didn't talk. She did talk politically. She did talk about who should be in power. So she did get into that. But it did seem like her main thing was because of her faith, because of her Christianity, that she wanted
Hmm.
to sit with them, and she wants to keep spreading this message that, you know, Christians shouldn't be persecuted, and it's important for Christians to be able to worship. So I think for her to,
Hmm.
you know, I believe, I'm a believer, and so I think that it's good for her to stand on that. And she obviously has influence, and um, it sounded positive and from a good. It sounded like it was coming from a good place, you know, just from what I could see.
Right.
And so, you know, if you're standing on those values, like family, like honor and respect, like, because those are the things that, you know, I would tie into um, healthy faith, because there are all different
Right.
kinds of different types of people, different types of ways that people use Christianity. But if I were to say, okay, like healthy Christianity, then I would, you know, like family structure and honor and respect and love and these things. If those are the values that you are promoting, then I think that's great. So uh I I'm glad that she spoke out. I think it's also positive for her. You know, I think I heard her say at least once, maybe more, that she said that it's okay to change your mind, and that alone. I mean, I, regardless of whether this changes someone politically or makes them reconsider their vote, that's one thing. But even just to have that message of it's okay to change your mind. For Black people specifically, I agree with you that like groupthink and this idea that, like, because you're Black, you must also do this, I think is really detrimental. Um, yeah, to society and to culture, but to your own self. Like, I
Yeah.
do believe you need to be able to discern. If you end up on the majority where Black people are at, okay, but to be able to, and if you don't, okay, like, but to be able
Right.
to discern for yourself what you believe, what you value, and not to be, like Nicki Minaj said, pushed around by them to feel like you have to, or else you're going to be like ostracized, and maybe you will be. But I think but I think it seems like the spirit of her message was that, and even if I am ostracized, like, and even if they do reject me, and even if someone doesn't understand, these are my words, not hers, but even if they don't understand, I think this is right. Like, I believe this is right. And so
Hmm.
I think that that's a really positive message that I am definitely aligned in terms of, like, you know, in promoting, like, independent thinking. And it's not
Absolutely.
about being like pro or anti Black. It's about being
Right.
like doing the right thing. So I think
Yeah.
that Black people, particularly, I again agree with you that it's like, you know, you don't seem to get that. We don't seem to get that same margin. But the more people that speak out that, like, that's not okay, and we need
Yeah.
to be able to decide for ourselves, just like anybody else does. I think that that's really important.
Ultimately, what I would have liked to see, because I stand in the same place you're at. Like, I'm not passionate about TPUSA. Doesn't, it's immaterial to my life. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But I think her going over there, I do think was brave because it obviously, I did a reaction video on that at the time, and I said I was laughing because all the days and everything she said was coded, but we knew exactly what she was saying. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, this is good because this is the position of a lot of people, particularly in entertainment. You know, they got to be on the left. They have to
Mhm.
be. because
Yeah.
especially when their fan base is on the left, either they do that or they're just apolitical. But she didn't really go over there with the political thing, as you said. She went over there more from a Christian point of view, and her faith was what brought her over there. But ultimately, I think the sad part and what I liked to change is that I saw a lot of prominent, not prominent, non-prominent YouTubers, pundits, whatever,
Mm,
say we're done with her. We're done. We won't even have a conversation with her. That is crazy to me. That's crazy. What
mhm,
I would say, what I like to see is that I would love to see like someone like a Joe Budden. He's like, I'm done with her. I'm not even gonna talk to her no more. That's crazy. I would like to see you invite her on and
mhm,
did because what she did when she went there, I think she was vague on purpose, right?
mm,
So it's to open the conversation. So maybe you bring her over, interview her, um, if you disagree with her, to probe more to understand where she's coming from, what she agrees with, what she doesn't agree with. Because I forgot the wording of what you said, but basically the point is that when people are, we have to be one or the other. So if you go and talk to a conservative, well, you agree with everything that
mhm,
conservatives do, the good, the bad, the ugly, you agree with all of it, right?
mhm.
And that's not necessarily true, right? So going to talk to someone doesn't mean you're lockstep with everything they believe. It just means you're going to talk with someone.
Yep.
And black people need to have the freedom and maneuvering to do that so there's better understanding, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest tragedy so far with that, as far as the reaction. But
Yeah.
I think it's still a net positive to your point because it was brave to do it. But I think more people should say, you know what, rather than pushing this deportation narrative and we're not going to talk to you anymore, that's bad. That's bad, particularly for black people. And I'll say this on this point:
Mm,
most of the backlash that I saw was black people. It
mhm.
wasn't liberals per se. It wasn't the left. Yeah, I saw some non-black people, but most of the vehement hate and anger was black people. So when I did my reaction video, I said, this is a black white thing. This is not a
Yeah.
liberal conservative thing. This has become, oh, you chose your side, which is not the black side. That's not good.
No, I
That's a bad
totally agree, totally agree.
thing.
I mean, and hopefully, hopefully this isn't as fantastical as my idea that people should just made up just to get some money. But um, like
I love it.
another idea that is like hopefully if people are searching the internet looking at these reactions, they start to kind of wake up and say, is this person that I might be entertained by? Let's say Joe Budden, for example, which I didn't hear what he said, but I believe what you said because I don't like the Joe Budden podcast myself. I don't like Joe Budden. But
Yeah, I just
so
saw a
like I
clip
don't
of
this
it.
is it's like there's really a lot going on over there. But it's like, okay, is this person who might be entertaining me? Does this person want the best for me? Like, is this person or is this person really encouraging my health, my mental health, right? Or is it just like kind of just an echo chamber and of groupthink? And if you were to disagree with this person personally, they probably ostracize you too, right? Or and
Mhm.
maybe like I should be around people or listening to people who are able to have more respect for me as an individual
Right.
person that can have my own ideas and my own opinions and my own vote and my own decisions, and you can still respect me as a person. But yeah, like this whole like just ostracizing this cancel culture thing, especially coming from black people to black people about these things, like I think that um it's showing a lot about who that person kind of who that person is.
Absolutely.
And we all have to know that we get to decide who we listen to and what kind of rooms we're in, whether that's in real life or online. So I think it is a net positive. And I could go on, but I will leave it at that. I think you make great comments on it.
First and last of all, I appreciate you coming on the Crucial Combo podcast, Taylor. It's been a great conversation with you. Hopefully, this will not be the last time you come back to the pod. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm sure that there are many other things that we could dig into. But
So
I
much.
really enjoyed the conversation with you. Any other thing you want to say to the people
Yeah.
before we sign off?
Keep thinking. Keep thinking, keep the faith. You know what I mean? Now, I don't need to get into like your spiritual faith, religion. So I'm talking about keep the faith in terms of like there really are people who care and who are really thinking and who are really making positive movement, motion, and are really here to help in different ways. In some cases, it's in holding the conversation. In other cases, it's in counseling. In some cases, it's in like retreats or experiences. But there really are people that do care and that are genuine and sincere, and I know it can be hard to locate us, but we really are here and we're real people. So I just want people to just to stay hopeful, and to kind of maybe even regain some hope that you might have lost, because the internet is crazy. I don't like being on the internet, and this is like my job. Like, I don't like being here. But when I find people
Yeah,
like
true.
you, Kojo, and it helps me too, and it helps me to stay motivated and inspired to keep doing what I'm doing. So I really appreciate that. And everybody can
Awesome.
find me. I'm at I am Taylor Chandler everywhere. So you can on
Yes.
YouTube, on Instagram, my website. So you can find me there, and we'll all be in touch.